Just even recently, I was sitting in on a master class for violin, and they were asking different students to play, and the teacher turned to me and asked if I wanted to play, and mustering up as much courage as I could, I dove into the piece that I've been working on, and just every mistake possible, telling myself, just listening to those voices in my head, you can't do this, you can't do this, and wound up having to stop. And I'm just always so nervous trying to play in other, even my teachers, I can't seem to play in front of them. And so it's something that I really feel like especially wanting to pursue this, not even being able to play in front of a teacher is something that really troubles me.
Are there times when it's slightly better?
A little bit, if it's a close friend, but even that, I find myself shaking.
But there is some noticeable difference, though, or
yes, I would think so.
Okay.
Not, I can't. There's very few times where I've been able to smoothly play what I was working on for somebody without being afraid.
Okay. How about times when it would be like, when's it at its absolute worst?
Definitely in front of my teachers.
Okay.
When I'm working with somebody who is coaching me or trying to show me something.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, how comfortable do you feel in this conversation with a Facebook Live? Is that within your comfort zone?
No, I think that's easier.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask.
As long as you don't ask me to play, we're good.
No, I'm not gonna ask you to play. I'm not gonna.
Okay, thank you.
That's not the big reveal.
Good.
Okay. Does that apply? Is that just in music, or is it something that you notice that's maybe similar elsewhere, or like how? I'm very curious to know like how you're kind of putting that together, like the you know, in a performance setting. Because what I'm hearing you say, if I can paraphrase, is that there's this thing that I call performance. It's a certain special occasion. There are certain people that make the bad feelings happen. There are certain people that make the bad feelings a bit easier. There are certain settings where the bad feelings don't happen at all, it appears. Like I'm caricaturing, right?
Sure.
But what you know, is it just in terms of performance, or?
I think with music so far, yes. I mean, I used to, kind of funny, I used to be a character in a Dickens festival in Long Island for 4 years.
Okay.
And I could walk up to somebody with that and say, well, I had a costume on, I don't know, and I could just sing up to a crowd or a person and not have a problem with it. But since then, something's set in, and trying to sing in front of people or play the violin, and now I just panic.
It would be with singing. If you had to do that same thing in Long Island again, would it be worse, or?
I don't know. The costume really makes a difference. It's something to hide behind, you know. I think I've had a few experiences since then. I do remember some childhood incidences, and I think those tapes even more recently just play in my mind when I go to perform or play in front of anybody. You know, things that have been
what plays in your mind?
I remember as a young girl going up to a piano just to try and tinker with it, and picking out a song that was in my mind and finding the keys and being really excited and trying to further it. And my mom coming up to me and saying, "Oh, stop. Nobody wants to hear you play that. You're just annoying everybody." And then same thing with singing, finding out that she had liked the favorite song and performing it with my little friends and just doing the same song over and over again every time, and just the same reaction to it. And I think that's kind of stuck in the back of those tapes, you know, that we replay over to ourselves sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I very much think that when I want to play, that either thinking about my whoever is coaching me, their knowledge, and even the people that I have played, like this class, these kids are amazing violinists, most of them, and I'm squeaking out my 1 year's tunes, and thinking, oh my goodness, how could they even stand to listen to that? And yet some of them are new as well, but just always thinking about those thoughts while I'm trying to perform.
So thinking thoughts like comparing yourself to the other musicians
That, yes,
and the stories from before, the things that have happened historically.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. And when you do that kind of thinking,
Mhm.
what does that create, or what does that have you do? I've heard a little bit, you mentioned about some mistakes and stuff, but like what when you have that thinking and you believe that thinking to be
Mhm.
true, like what happens?
I just start I start making all sorts of mistakes. I start freezing up and then just wind up stopping usually.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Is it are we talking about a memory, like a memory lapse, or what kind of mistake exactly are we talking about here?
Um, I would say hitting all the wrong notes, my intonation being off, shaking. Uh, it's hard to bow when you're shaking unless you want
Yeah.
to go vibrato, I guess. Transfer that into something good. And remembering, not remembering the next notes sometimes,
Uh-huh.
having to stop and just think and try and calm myself down or try and power through it. And then I just make even more mistakes.
Right. Okay. So, dumb question, but like if there's no audience and you're in the safety of your own home and no one's watching, like how well do you hit the notes when you're at home?
Much better. Oh, much better.
What percentage? Like 90%, 100%, 50%?
90%.
Okay.
90%.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And percentage wise, what would it be in performance circumstances, do you reckon?
45, 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the best that it's been in a
Uh,
performance situation?
in a performance situation,
Yeah. Because I heard you mention that it was possible for you to sing a few years ago
yes.
in a costume.
Yes.
That sounded like it was more in the, I don't know, 90s region, that kind of.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Trying to think. Probably 10 to 12 years ago,
Okay.
actually. Yeah.
Okay. Um, how accurate would you say that sung performance was, if you had to give that a kind of percentage?
Oh, gosh.
I mean, like how you wanted it, how close to how you wanted it to be, was it?
A good 98%, I would say.
Okay.
98 to 100%.
Okay.
No shyness with that. No
Beautiful.
shyness.
Okay. So that's really interesting then. So that proves that it's possible for you to perform in a performance situation. You've got references for that.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
that's interesting to know. Um,
It's interesting you brought that up. Um, yeah, I've kind of never thought of the two side by side so much now as in a direct contrast.
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So like, what is it if you put them side by side? What is the difference that you're like? What are you attributing the difference in experience to?
Um, I
Like,
think,
what's Lisa's theory for like why there's a difference?
yeah, I know I had a costume. I don't know, that's was something easy to hide behind and be another persona almost. Whereas this is just more who I am. And I think also the lack of knowledge that I feel I have now. You know, not that I've taken a few singing lessons. Nothing is compared to what I've experienced with the violin, but I think more of a confidence in my ability,
Mm.
whereas this is a newer thing, and um, everybody seems to be so educated and so knowledgeable, and I'm just delving into this. And although I have to say, when I have taken singing lessons, there is that same fear. It's almost impossible to squeak out a note. It's more with the lessons. um, Maybe because I'm trying to think this through as I talk to you. Maybe it was the confidence in my ability at the time, but then standing there with people who are professionals or have recorded their songs or their work, where they're so good at something, and then I'm standing there feeling insufficient next to these people. Whereas I guess in the Dickens Festival and in an audience, it's costumes and fun, and there's no pressure. I think once that
Mm.
pressure hits, I don't really know. I've tried to think about what makes me so nervous. And aside from those feelings, that's just that hard part to cross
Mm.
over and try and solve that issue.
Yeah, that's my sense. That's my sense that you're noticing, you know, and you said that you maybe haven't thought about it in quite this way before, but you're
Yeah.
noticing that it is possible. It is a possibility for you to be in a performance situation
Yes.
and for, you know, to be able to perform as if it's no big deal, as if it's no special
Yeah.
circumstance. And yet there seems to be certain times or certain circumstances, it would appear,
Yeah.
that seem to have some kind of power over you.
Yes.
Um, what if it wasn't really the performance sort of situation or the presence of the other people, however well qualified they are,
Mm-hmm.
or the fact that you're not wearing a costume, or the fact that it's the violin, or the fact that the other people might be younger than you, or whatever. What if none of those things are actually the cause of the difference? Like what if the difference was what if the difference was in the story
Mm-hmm.
being told?
I could see that.
Now, I know that can sound a bit trite. It can sound a bit like, okay, it's just your thinking. But
Not really.
how does that sound to you?
It sounds more logical. I like to try and break things down scientifically when I can, and that would make more sense, because it doesn't make sense to me as why in one I can just so freely do it, except that in my mind I could hide behind a costume, and then in the other I can't, or feel like I can.
Because I reckon if I reckon it's possible for you to be anxious in a costume too.
I guess so.
If you want, I'm sure if you wanted to, I'm sure
Yeah,
you could manage
yeah,
it,
really.
right? That you see, because to me, Lisa, the fact that there's a difference at all is
Mhm.
a really curious thing, because it's like, well, seemingly, it's not the fact that it's not about performing in front of other people, because you're performing in front of other people in both settings.
Yes.
And although we haven't really talked about it, my sense is, I reckon that there would be certain people that you'd feel more comfortable performing in front of than others. It's kind of a sort of sliding scale depending on,
Yeah.
like, if they've we could make something arbitrary up, like well, this person's played the violin for 2 more years than me, so they're the next echelon. And then there's Maxim Vengerov at the end, and he's like the greatest violinist in the world or whatever. And so it's like, okay, cool, well, I'm definitely going to like shit my pants in front of Maxim Vengerov. But it turns out that I'm not so sure it's really like a causative link. You know,
Mm.
I'm not sure it's the fact that it's a certain person. I know it may definitely seem that way,
Right, right.
because that's the nature of, you know, when you think, the nature of thought is to produce a reality that looks
Yes.
really real, that feels really
Yeah.
real, you know, that
Right, right.
has an internal logic. And there's kind of you know, there's sort of a, in terms of the human developmental you know, evolutionary way of thinking, there's logic to that, you know, that
Right.
it's not uh there's logic in us being able to think that there's more danger than there actually is, because it, you know, if that kind of assuming that there's a reason to be panicked, if that saved someone's life historically 1 in 1,000 times, it's worth that trait sort of you know,
Right,
persisting.
right.
But it
I see.
doesn't mean that the fact that you're having fearful thinking or a fearful experience
Right.
doesn't mean that that feeling itself is proof that there's something wrong. What
That
it
makes
does prove, well, this is my assertion, what it does prove is that the fact that you're having a fearful experience at times, and it's not a constant thing, it kind of varies from moment to moment, I would imagine, even throughout a single high pressure performance. You know, there'll be moments where you'll notice it more or notice it less, or you'll be thinking about, oh, did I turn the screw on the end of my bow? And so you'll be thinking
sense.
practical things, and you won't be thinking, oh, I'm freaking out at this moment.
Yeah.
So it'll even in a kind of, this is a high stakes situation, it will kind of go up and down. My assertion is that the reason that it changes at all is because you have the ability to create your own reality.
Hmm.
You have the ability to think up your reality. I don't mean just like intellectualize about it. I mean, like, you know, right here, right now, the
Hmm.
experience that you're having, if it weren't for thought, there could be no experience. It's kind of like the screen upon which life unfolds, like the story or the movie of life unfolds,
Right, right.
the thought-based screen. Right. It's not to say that there's not real stuff going on. There's real stuff,
Right.
but
No, I hear what you're saying.
the experience,
Right,
it is a it's subjective, you know,
right. The
for a
thought
reason.
affects the experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd say the totality of the experience
Yes.
exists in thought. It's created by thought. So 100% of that experience occurs in thought. 100% of it. You know, I'm not saying that it's an imaginary world, but I'm saying that the experience itself, by its very fabric, is subjective.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's thought generated, and so the innocent mistake, or the kind of innocent blind spot that we have, is that we, you know, an event occurs, or something we'd call a situation occurs. So, you know, in order for one you know, violin scraping episode to be called a performance, and another violin
Yeah.
scraping, I'm talking about my violin scraping, not yours, you know, like, I'm just thinking it's like in order for one of those to be called a performance and to be taken as a performance, and another to be called rehearsal, or another to be called practice, like,
Hmm.
the only reason that really happens is because we're thinking about it in a different way. I know that there may be different people, you know, but you can talk about like having a, you know, going into practice mode when you're at home, or you can go into performance mode, and you can kind of think a bit like it's a performance. So
Yes.
so so even the I guess what I'm encouraging you to do, you know, we've got a short time today, otherwise I'd normally sort of go into
Sure.
a bit more depth than this. But what I'm encouraging you to do is to consider this afresh. You know, like is it really true that there's a special circumstance that is a separate circumstance called performance that's special, or is that thinking that makes that in a special category?
I guess it would be in the thinking, because really when you're practicing, you should practice for performance in order to produce your best sound. So I guess thinking it through, what difference would it make whether I'm by myself, if I'm striving to do my best, and when I'm in front of a bunch of people. I guess when I say it that way, I'm trying to impress people with my playing. Whereas when I'm by myself, it's
Yeah,
just me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what if you didn't need to impress people? Like, what if you didn't need to, like, because you may impress them by accident. Like, what if you don't need to try to impress them?
I've never thought of that. Honest, I sound as funny as that sounds. I hadn't thought of that. That would make a big difference. Yeah, that would make a big difference. And probably bring a lot more enjoyment.
Or someone once, it's funny because someone once said to me that there's nothing less impressive than someone trying to be impressive.
It's really true. It's really true. Wow. That was an aha. That was a light bulb go off moment. That's really true. That's really true. Wow, Nick, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah, that's really true. Wow. That would make all the difference, I feel like.
I think because it's innocent. I'm not, you know, there's no part of this that
Sure.
I can't relate to, or anyone watching this can't relate to. You know, there's nothing, you know, to burst. Hopefully, not to burst your bubble, but there's nothing about this that is surprising to me in the slightest. You know, this is what you're describing is entirely natural and normal, and something that every musician on the planet has had their own experience of. Even if they've been doing it all their life, they all have the ability, and I mean every single one, no matter what they might say, but
Right.
literally, you know, if it were, if we were to take a lie detector test, you know, that there are moments when everyone has those more self-conscious moments where they're either trying to impress or trying to assert that they know something or trying to prove something, but in some shape or form they're essentially thinking about the character and the one that's, you know, they're kind of edifying this image of self-importance in some way.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
it's that flavor of thinking, or that kind of selfing process of like doing, you know, if I'm a good violinist, then I'll play with a very smooth bow, and if I start to shake, that's proof that I'm no good. You know, that all
Right.
that kind of
Right.
thinking, you know.
Sure.
But when that kind of thinking's not happening, like bowing just happens,
Yeah.
or playing the wrong note and self-correcting just happens, or playing the wrong note and going, oh, that was the wrong note, and then
Yeah.
playing the next best note that you can, you know, and just kind of steering back on course. That just happens without it meaning anything, because it's just music, it's just notes, bows, you know, it's just stuff happening without the character being involved too much.
Right. Right. Wow. That was quite profound, even though it's so simple. Pride rears its ugly head.
Yeah. Well, it's innocent. It's innocent. And hats off to you for having the conversation.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad to be able to do this. And it was extremely helpful and eye-opening. When I think back to the Dickens Festival and being a character, I was really just having a lot of fun. And
Mm,
that made all the difference. It was just fun to be out there with the costumes and the people and being in character. And so I think that made it easy because I wasn't looking at that as to impress somebody. I was just out there having a good time, and it
yeah,
made all the difference.
yeah. And I think you will. My sense is, even though this is not a target for you, but my sense is that the
Right.
more fun you have, or the more you go just to have fun,
Yeah.
or just to play, for you, or just for the sake of doing it, the more impactful, the more honest the performance will feel. My sense is the audience will feel more of you,
Yes.
because ironically you're trying to be
Yeah.
less impressive. You know,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
less of you. There's less of you going on in here, but there's
Exactly.
more of you coming out. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm kind of looking forward to practice now, just to kind of put that in there
Mhm.
and just be myself.
No,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Would you? Could I give you a little challenge?
Sure.
And you can say piss off to this if you want, or you know, or worse,
You're
you
not
know.
going to ask me to come back and play, right?
Well, I'm offering you this. If you wanted to use the group to share your playing, I think that could be an interesting experience. I'm not saying that you have to do it on a
Right.
Facebook Live, but I'm saying, you know, I've talked about the difference between transformation and in just information. It's like
Right.
we've had a cool conversation, and it sounds like something's landed for you. And I'm always keen to see, well, let's see where the edge is now. Let's see what happens. And because my prediction is that it may not feel good
Right.
when you do it, but I'm not so interested in it feeling good. I'm interested in you having an experience of like, maybe it's not as impossible to me, or maybe it's not quite the same as it was
Right.
anymore. So
Right.
my invitation is, I mean, I'd love you if you felt happy to, uh, if you felt happy to go live. I'd love to for you to play us something. Or if you wanted to make a video, the offer is there. Or if you told me to piss off, that's also fine. But I just like, as your coach right now, my invitation would be, well, let's see what we can do to expand
Yeah.
it further. And you don't have to tell me now, by the way. I don't need a yes or a
Okay.
no right now.
Okay.
But I'm being that nagging voice that goes, maybe you can do it, Lisa. Maybe you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Do keep in mind, I've only been playing for 1 year, so you're not gonna. Yeah.
Then I'll expect a 1 year's worth of playing performance.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. Challenge accepted. I don't know which one yet, but yeah, I would
Okay.
like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay.
We'll leave it there. Good. All right.
All
Lovely
right.
speaking to you.
It was lovely as well. Thank you so much, Nick.
A pleasure. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.